want to introduce Dr. Richard Smith, who is the chair of the Innovations in Community Practice and Leadership concentration.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I'm going to attempt to share my screen now. Okay. So welcome this sunny morning. So I have been with the Innovation in Community Policy and Leadership concentration since its inception. I think in 2012 was our first cohort. And I'm very happy to be here. We're excited about our new MSW curriculum. Like Dr. Brown, I'm going to talk about the curriculum first, then show how as a social worker who gets trained in macro social work, how you would approach Chiron, his school and his community, and also what policies might shape the context for Chiron, his family, his school, and his community. And of course, you'll be able to hear more in the breakout. We are excited. We have some very special guests, some recent graduates of the program who can share with you how ICPL has shaped their career path. All right. So, don't forget to mute. So in ICPL, we like to think, just like IP, with the MSW, the possibilities are endless. Social work is always an evolving profession. It's a profession that adapts to changing contexts. And that's why we put innovation at the front of our macro curriculum, because the world is always changing. As social workers, we have to adapt. This is from the state of Michigan licensure regulations in the public health code that Dr. Anwar went over. Some of the licensing regulations just gives you a sense of the definition of macro social work. So on the one hand, all social workers apply knowledge of human development and behavior and the social, economic, and cultural institutions that shape those. But the macro social work specifically works with communities, groups, organizations through planned interventions. Now, throughout your career, all of you will be, have some contexts where you work one-on-one with people in different settings, and all social workers will have to do planning of some sort with different types of clients. The ICPL curriculum will specifically focus on communities, organizations, and advocating for more socially just social policies. So what I'd like to do now, in maybe 2 to 4 years, you'll be graduating. And I'd like you to think for a minute, what is your dream job? And go ahead and put in the chat what your dream job is. This is called a cognitive affective process. Ooh, now they're really coming through. Yeah. Right. So I'm doing some on the fly qualitative data analysis here. I see most of probably the most frequent response, just eyeballing it, is we have therapist or counselor. I see a few people who want to work with people who are experiencing homelessness. That is a population that there are opportunities across the spectrum, interpersonal and community social work. I see some people who say, I don't know. If you don't know, that's a good chance you are, that ICPL would be good for you, because that I don't know might mean I have a lot of interests and I want to accommodate them. It could mean many things, and ICPL could be a way to explore that. And I'm also seeing some very specific, what I would call, it sounds like people have probably made up their mind that ICPL is right for them. For example, someone wants to run for Congress. Someone wants to be a political organizer. Another person wants to do consulting for nonprofit and government agencies. Some people want to work in community reintegration of returning citizens. So thank you for being very engaged in this. The reason I ask you to think about your dream job is if you have a sense of where you're going, then you can start to think of how to get there. It's sometimes akin to, you know, do you take the bus? Do you drive? Do you walk? Do you bike? Well, a lot of that depends on where you're going. Like, can you get there from here? All right. So here's an overview, a snapshot of the ICPL curriculum. And, you know, it's innovation in community leadership and policy. And it's one concentration. For those of you who, when you mentioned, some of you, when I asked you your dream job, you actually used the word community. That might be a signal that you would want to take our community theory practice course. The one primary choice that you make when you're in the ICPL curriculum is you take at least one of these top 3 courses. Some students take all of them. Some students take 2 of the 3, but you only have to take 1 of the 3. Some of you, the people who said, for example, I want to be run for office, I want to be a political consultant, that's a good signal that you might want to take the policy, social work 8085, social policy, and social action. You might also, you know, if you're going to be in Congress, you might be interested in the leadership courses. The theory practice one is called Advanced Systems, that's 8065. We also have a leadership elective. Those in the IP course, that is actually very popular with our IP students. The leadership elective, we don't teach people how to open a private practice per se, but you get some of the leadership skills. Another leadership course that's very popular with all of the MSW students and fills every year is our social entrepreneurship course. The person who said consult to nonprofits and government agencies and cities, that also might fall here in the leadership area. Now, so really the main curricular choice within ICPL is selecting one or more of these 3 courses. Then there's probably, I haven't calculated all the permutations and combinations, but it would be a really big number. We have many approved electives, and just like an IP, there'll be 11 credits. I was emailing back and forth with the associate dean on just how many credits electives we had. Some are in social work. We do recommend you take courses outside of social work. Why? Because when you're out working on a job, you'll be working with people who are professionally trained for other professions. Also, some other professions have a great deal of overlap with what social workers do. And they offer courses in areas of interest. For example, urban planning offers a really good community development course. Political science, go figure, they offer a lot of policy related courses. They also offer public budgeting and finance. They offer nonprofit management. And we want you to be able to take advantage of some of these other opportunities on campus. My colleague in political science and public administration, Dr. Alicia Maldonado, she loves having social work students in her class every year. She says, "Oh, Rick, I just had the best students from your program this year. I can't wait to have more." Okay, so another requirement, if you're a core year student in the winter, in your first year, you will be taking community to organizational measures. If you're advanced standing, that's taken in the summer. In your advanced year, you get to choose from within a set of approved research electives. And I teach the 1 credit research courses. And then Dr. Michael Kroll teaches a very popular social action research course. That's a course teaching you how to design research projects with the community, so that you have equal power where the community, residents, they design the research questions and actually often implement, analyze, and even publish the data, the work together with the researcher. Another requirement, this is now a requirement for all MSW students to take 8770 or equivalent. And that is an advanced policy and advocacy course that is offered both in fall and winter. And of course we have field, very important. And if you come to the breakout, we can talk more about the electives. So what can you expect in the classroom? What makes ICPL distinct pedagogically? We're training you to become scholars and practitioners for social change. So we'll be asking you to imagine what a just society looks like, what a just community looks like, and how to work towards that. You'll have rich interactions with faculty members and peers. That does mean group projects, but it also means time outside of class. Perhaps it might mean rich interactions with guest speakers, with community partners that you're working with. The 3 theory practice courses, there'll be opportunities to work on real world assignments, planning projects and programs. For example, in the course I teach, community building and development, for the past 2 years, we've been working with the Ford Community Corps. Ford Motor Company pairs us up with community-based organizations, and we actually work on a real problem that that organization is facing. So for this semester, Southwest Solutions asked us to develop a survey to figure out how we can promote digital literacy among clients, many of whom might be Spanish speaking, have limited English proficiency. And that's because a lot of their programming is moved online. So they also not only have to do the programming they have for adult education, but they also have to upgrade the digital literacy skills and also provide access to the digital technology. That's just one example. In all the classes, of course, and this would be true of IP, you'll be learning persuasion, analytic writing, and presentation skills. This is just a plug for some of the special opportunities. Some of these are align more closely with ICPL than others. We have the Joint Masters of Public Health. I would like to give a special plug for the Graduate Certificate in Entrepreneurship. So if you are going to take social entrepreneurship, you wouldn't need that much more to complete the graduate certificate in entrepreneurship with the business school. We've been participating since that launched. And we do have many of our students also are taking one of the social work certificate programs, whether that's gerontology, alcohol and substance use, disability. We're also developing several course sequences or focal areas. One of the early ones out the door is a course sequence in holistic defense. And this is particularly for those interested in working in the criminal legal system to advocate for persons facing incarceration. As I alluded to earlier, the nonprofit, the public administration program really loves having our students take electives, so much so that they want our students to also get their nonprofit management certificate. And of course, some of you might decide you want further education. If you are interested in a PhD, the ICPL program has a plan of work that aligns with the social work and anthropology program. One thing I didn't put up here, if you do get the ICPL degree, you are eligible to get a non-degree certificate from the National Network of Social Work Managers. There's a small fee for that, or at least it's small to me. It might not be small to you, but that's something that we will, if you're in the program, we'll let people know. And that's been very popular with students. Okay. So this is just a snap. I like to give students a snapshot of real world salaries and job numbers. This is for the Tri-County area. So Wayne, Oakland, Macomb County. There's approximately 11,000 social workers and these mysterious occupation is called the community, the social and community service managers and specialists. So I hope you know what social, I hope you know what social workers are. Well, what are these other things? The Bureau of Labor Statistics classifies anyone working in community services at a managerial level or a specialist level in this bucket. And in the description, it says they might be social workers, they might be urban planners, they might be people in ministry, the clergy. The setting that really comes to mind here is homelessness services, where you might have people with different professional backgrounds or even paraprofessionals working in the organization. So just a little explanation there. One disclaimer about these data, this does not include the self-employed, so it wouldn't include people in private practice. It includes people working in formal employment. All right, so if you notice, I'll do another Zoom quiz. What classification gets the highest salary? And anyone, the first one who puts it in the chat wins the satisfaction of being the first one to put it in the chat. This was a gimme. Maybe everyone went to get coffee. I don't know. All right, child. So child, okay, so no, child is the largest number of workers. And then the highest salary would be the social and community services managers, which makes sense. Managers usually get paid more. Now, that's an average, and if you've taken a research class, you know about an average that it is sensitive to outliers. So the salaries could be considerably higher, and then they could be lower as well. And the distribution might not be normally distributed, as salaries often are not in this country. But you know, obviously, I think it's fair. It's a fair assumption to think that as you go into management, your salary will go up. That said, you know, salaries have been going up year to year. But most of the interest, of course, and arguably the funding as well, is with child, family, and school services. But there still are a fair amount, you know, what I would think might be, I put in the red the ones where I think most of the ICPL or macro social workers would end up. And that's still what? Oh no, I'm doing math in my head again. That's always a bad idea. So I would say that's around 2,500 people in the Tri-County area. So if you're in Washtenaw, you know, you have to get that table yourself. All right, so where do you end up working? There's a large diversity of places, and some of them you've already listed. The students I know, many end up in community development, housing, or homelessness services. I do know some recent graduates who've gone to immigrant refugee services working for Access and Dearborn. One of my favorite stories, I had a student take my community assessment and evaluation class. She's, you know, like so many students, they struggled learning how to make maps with digital technology. And, you know, it was a big struggle, a lot of work, many hours. And after she graduated, the first job she got was actually working for a technology startup that made digital mapping technology. And she became their community engagement and customer service officer. People go into politics, they go into government, they go into elected office. So let's see, the most, oh, I'm blanking on her name. She now runs the THAW program, the Heat Light Fund. Chantil Jenkins was president of City Council, and she actually was an MSW intern with our dean, Cheryl Kubiak, under the president of City Council, Marion Mahaffey, who was also a professor in the School of Social Work. So there is a decades-long tradition of students in this program running for City Council and other forms of elected office. One of the students, I just saw him, he was a BSW student. If anyone in Oakland County, Charlie Cavell was a BSW student, and he is now a county commissioner. He represents Ferndale, Hazel Park, Oak Park, that area. Many of our graduates, they might work for schools, universities, or other educational areas. And you'll hear from some today. Like the associate dean mentioned at the beginning, she went through the MSW program here. Macro social workers work in social service agencies along with interpersonal. They might be doing the research and evaluation. They might be doing the grant writing. Let's see. Just looking at some of the jobs. In Detroit, lots of community organizers. So that's always an option. Sometimes that role is referred to as community engagement manager. And there are some nuances which you would figure out when you actually take the coursework. A recent graduate was just hired as the Community Engagement Manager for Climate Change Mitigation at the Eastside Community Network. People work in prevention, whether that's prevention of substance use, tobacco, obesity. That's something that is a very active career path. People who go into fundraising. Then the policy people, usually they're either advocating, they're wonky analysts. We tend not to get the wonky analyst people. Most of our graduates are advocates. One of our recent graduates works for the State Trade Association for organizations that serve survivors of intimate partner violence. So her full-time job is to just advocate for that population. And she actually called me up one day and said, we're trying to figure out where all the bus stops are in the state, because people often have to take a bus to get to a shelter. And there's, agencies don't know how to refer. Fortunately, she had taken my mapping class, so she already knew how to do that. She just had to find out where to get the bus stops. And then, of course, some people want to be the boss, and that's okay. But on the way to being the boss, you might be a consultant. You might be someone who works with nonprofits or public agencies on best practices, employee training, compliance. We've been seeing more and more job openings for people who do compliance, and sometimes that does require a license.